So I think most of us these days have heard of the term white knighting or being a Captain Save-A-Ho. These dudes that are tripping over themselves to try and win over girls who couldn't give two shits about them. Girls wrapped up in a lot of drama, bad boyfriends. They're doing everything to be nice to win them over. And the more I've thought about this, the more I've come to see that a lot of men are actually unintentionally becoming a white knight because they just don't understand how to discern between being a white knight and having masculine leadership skills. So let's get this one thing clear and said. Being a white knight and being a masculine leader are not the same thing. And if you've ever found yourself bending over backwards and sacrificing your own goals or playing the nice guy in hopes that, some woman that you're interested in will finally see your worth, then this video is for you. Because today I am going to show you the difference between behaving like a white knight and embodying masculine leadership qualities and why white knight behaviors are holding you back and how to shift them into being the kind of man that women genuinely desire. So I want to start off by explaining what being a white knight really means. This is how I define it, okay? A white knight is a man who uses deeds and gestures that he believes are kind, thinking that he can manipulate a woman into liking him. And he often lacks the personal boundaries and allows himself to be treated like a doormat because he carries a false belief that the more he sacrifices himself and gives to her, that the stronger her attraction for him will be. And so what does this look like? Well, it usually looks like him helping her financially, for one, giving her money, a little gas money here, a little paying an electric bill, helping her if she gets a parking ticket. It's also running errands, taking her to the hair salon on the other side of town or fixing her toilet. It can also just be being a shoulder to cry on. And actually, this is a good one because this is one where a lot of guys, they put themselves into the position of listening to her talk about other men, like how other dudes will just pump and dump her. And he's like, the white knight sitting there thinking, man, how does she keep going after these jerks? When I'm being so nice to her. Okay. Some other things are just like, picking her up when she's drunk at the club. It's essentially, kind of chasing after women and sacrificing his own time, his own freedom, and his own goals just to keep them around. And they hope that she'll give him, eventually they'll give him the time of day. But you can also be a white knight in a relationship, okay? It's not just a friend-zoned chump kind of a guy. There are plenty of men who are white knights to their girlfriends and are eternally frustrated, okay? These guys are just pissed and upset all the time. But here's the truth. None of that white knight behavior works. And even worse, it leads to resentment on both sides, you and her. So let me explain how this works. From your perspective, you are putting in all this effort, right? You're trying to fix her, support her, be her savior. You're trying to show her this great life and what true love really is. You're so much better than that other guy. And you think that all of your good deeds and kind gestures should be recognized and reciprocated, right? But in reality, you have now put yourself into a weak position, okay? How? Well, let me explain. What you've done here is you've allowed yourself to be seen as a tool, okay? She doesn't see you as a man who commands respect. You're at her beck and call, and you're behaving like a servant more than a masculine leader. And you've defined yourself as a man to be used when needed, but when it comes to intimacy, romance, and a genuine burning desire for you, she just does not see you in that way at all. And guess what? She, on the other hand, feels it too, okay? So she feels your attempts to fix her, and she starts to really resent you. And the more you try to save her and show her this, better life, the more she feels like she's not good enough. And she'll see your actions as a form of manipulation. And you'll quickly move from being a potential boyfriend to more like a best friend or even like a jerk, and not the good kind of jerk that she'll never really feel genuine attraction for. And this is especially true for men who try to save a girl from a bad boyfriend. Okay, so she tells you about all sorts of bad things that he does, how he cheats on her, he never calls her, is abusive, yet she keeps going back to him. And despite being the complete opposite, and in your mind you're behaving so nice, you know, she doesn't see you romantically. And women have the capacity to take full of advantage of all the things that you're doing for them. Okay, once they know that you'll do all these things, they can exploit it. And they figure, well, hey, since you want to do these things, they might as well ask you to do a bunch of things for them. And they can ask you whether you're in a relationship with her or not. And in the case where there is another guy in the picture, it could be an ex, or maybe you're friend zoned. Since he stands up for himself, or he simply has little disregard for her, he's the one who gets to bang her without doing all of the extracurricular nonsense. Okay, he's not doing errands, he's not sitting around listening to all of her problems like a therapist. He's just in, has a quick little bang, and he's out. Now, why is this the case? Why does she treat you, the white knight, like a friend, and the jerk like a lover? Well, this is where a lot of men get confused, okay? So, in reality, though, the reason is very simple. No woman can respect or feel genuine desire for a man who behaves like a servant, who doesn't stand up for himself, and who doesn't have boundaries. It's the end of story, guys. That's it. Yeah, she might love and care about you, but only as a friend. Okay, she might love you, but not be in love with you. That burning desire just is not there. And the further you try to push it, the nicer you try to be, she sees it as you having expectations for all those nice things that you think that you did, when in her mind, she never really asked for it. So she kind of sees it as you're buying her affection. And because of that, the more resentments between the two of you will build. And that's when the relationship just falls apart, just dies. So, what can you actually do about this? Well, let's talk about what it means to be a masculine leader, so you can shed all those gnarly white knight behaviors, stand up for yourself, and begin to interact with women in a very different way. Okay? So, a masculine leader is a man who puts himself first. Not necessarily in a selfish way. Sometimes maybe you can be selfish, right? Sometimes it's cool. It's good to do that. Shows that you are focused on your thing. But he does this because he knows he must handle his own needs before he can help anyone else. Okay, he has clear boundaries and does not allow mistreatment. If a woman crosses the line, he communicates that, hey, this is something I won't accept. And if she continues to disrespect him, he pulls back his attention and moves on. He's out of there. He doesn't sit there messing around and, okay, I guess I'll do this. He's just, boom, it's done, it's over. That's it. A masculine leader does not need to chase women or sacrifice his own life goals to keep someone around. He attracts women naturally by living his purpose, his mission, and his passions. He creates an environment where women feel drawn to him because they see that he's a man who knows what he wants and who values himself enough not to settle for anything less or settle for the way people treat him if they're not treating him well. Now, I did a poll last week on my Instagram on Miami Vice Life and The Sophisticated Scoundrel, and I asked my followers if they have ever struggled with being a white knight, and a lot of men do. It was about somewhere between 40 to 50% of men who answered said they have struggled with being a white knight. So, to illustrate a little bit more about what this white knight thing is, I'm going to share with you guys two of the messages that I received from two different guys who are currently struggling with these white knight dynamics in their relationships. Okay, so let's take a look at the first message, and that says, let me look at my thing here. It says, I'm in this right now, and I was aware of that in the beginning, but now I just can't leave her because she'll be completely alone in a foreign country. And I do need therapy because I started hating myself. I don't normally comment on stories, but this topic just hits too close to home. All right, this is great. This is a great example here from a guy. And so what we have here is the classic white knight scenario. You know, he's a guy who started off aware of the dynamics. He knew something was a little iffy, but over time he's fallen into the trap of feeling responsible now for her well-being. You know, he feels that he cannot leave her because she would be completely alone in a foreign country. And this is where a lot of men find themselves, trapped. I guess they can't. They can't leave. They want to. They don't want to stay, but they just feel trapped. You know, this desire to save or protect the woman becomes so overwhelming that they lose themselves in the process of the whole thing, and they start to feel like they are the only ones who can fix her or help her or fix her situation, or that they are obligated now to stay with her even when it's detrimental to their own mental health. Okay, and in his message, he even mentioned needing therapy because he's starting to hate himself. He's stuck. He's trapped between a rock and a hard place. And this is what it means. This is what happens when you lose sight of your own needs, your boundaries, and your own value. So, in a situation like this, what would a masculine leader's response be? So, a masculine leader would recognize, first of all, that while it's admirable to want to help someone, that's totally cool, it is not his job to sacrifice his own well being for someone else's comfort. He would understand that it's not his responsibility to fix her life or be her savior. And instead, he would have set clear boundaries from the start, offering support in a way that doesn't compromise his own mindset or life goals. And if he sees that his needs are not being met or his presence is becoming a crutch rather than a support for her, he would simply withdraw his attention and move on. And he would also recognize that, this woman was an adult, first of all, right? She's not a kid anymore, and she needs to be treated as such. She is capable of taking care of herself. Now, can he assist her with things if she asks? Of course, certainly. That's not a big deal. But does it mean that he's responsible for her just because she's in a foreign country? Well, no, absolutely not. And I would say that more than likely, he's actually projecting a little bit of her frailty, her frailness onto her, and she more than likely would be fine without him. White knights have this, they often forget to treat others like adults, and instead they baby them to feel important themselves, which further enables that other person, the woman in this case, not to fend for themselves, and it becomes this vicious cycle of I'm the white knight, she's the victim, over and over again. So the key takeaway here for you guys is this: a masculine leader helps from a position of strength, not self-sacrifice. You can care deeply for someone, but when helping them starts to damage yourself, you're no longer in a healthy dynamic at all. That's not a good place to be. So let's take a look at the second message, okay? This other guy, he wrote to me and says, have you ever experienced when she did arrive at all those feelings, of romance, but began to retreat when you were gradually leading the relationship to the next stage because she's the one afraid of commitment? The best thing to do is to let her be, but man, it can sting. Okay, great. This is another very common situation where a man, he's leading the relationship and he's starting to step into a more assertive role, leading it towards a deeper, committed stage, even though a man really should only focus on creating dates and leave the relationship up to her. But anyway, in this case, as he started to do this, she was pulling back because, she said that she fears she has her own fears and insecurities. And now this point is where a lot of men panic. I get so many messages about this, and those guys slip into that white knight behavior of trying to reassure her, overcompensating. They're bending over backwards to make her feel comfortable and loved and all this other stuff. And they think they're mistaken, though. They think that if they just give a little more or prove themselves more, that she'll come around, she'll love them, she'll see how great they are. But the reality is this: a masculine leader, a masculine response to this, he understands that women vote with their feet, and women do not run away from men that they are in love with. He would understand that a woman who is retreating due to a supposed fear of commitment, and he would translate this into her meaning a fear of commitment with me. That is the kicker right there. and that he would back off. He would know to back off and let her come to him. Okay, a masculine leader would step back, give her the space that she needs, and continue focusing on his own life and purpose. He's not going to chase, not going to try to fix her. He would just simply let her be. And yes, like the message says, it can sting when this happens, you know? I get it. It's not easy for a guy to be really into a chick, only to have her then start to pull away when you think it's going really well. But, you know, here's the difference. Okay, the masculine leader does not chase. He doesn't try to manipulate or change her. He's actually willing to let her go if she's not ready for what he is ready for. And the reason why he does this is because he knows that in the long run, it's better to be with a woman who genuinely wants to be with him than to try and manipulate her to stay. That's nonsense. That's bullshit. That's an empty thing that you're just forcing someone to be there. So, okay, if you find yourself in a situation like the first guy, you know, feeling stuck because you feel responsible for her well-being, or if you think you're more like the second guy, that you're facing this sting of seeing a woman retreat away from you because she's not ready due to you were over pursuing her, or she just wasn't into you, well, the lesson in both cases is the same. You must lead with strength, with purpose, and boundaries for yourself, okay? A masculine leader recognizes that his job is to create a stable, confident presence in his own life that a woman is naturally drawn to. It's not to manipulate or sacrifice his well-being in the hopes of earning her love or commitment. So if either of these examples resonate with you and you see yourself falling into these traps, well then it is officially time to step back and reevaluate. You gotta ask yourself, okay, are you acting from a place of strength and confidence, or are you actually slipping into white knight behaviors? Now, it's not fun to admit that, but if you really want to understand, then you have to be very objective about yourself and what you're doing. Okay, because if you are slipping into those white knight behaviors, chances are that you're hoping that you're gonna be rewarded for all of your sacrifices. But I want you to remember this. A great relationship starts with you being in a great place. It means both mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that means leading with a sense of purpose and confidence that does not rely on someone else's validation. So what I invite you to do is consider this. Which of these two are you? Okay, are you the white knight, constantly sacrificing your time and priorities in hopes that a woman will finally see your value, or are you indeed acting? Are you being a masculine leader who's focused on your life mission and purpose, and you're allowing women to show their kindness, their interest, and their compassion to you just as much as you do to them? Or is it one-sided? Are you just chasing after them and not really getting much in return? Because here's the reality for many of you guys, many men out there, they're stuck in a loop of bad relationships. And these kind of guys, they're white knights with poor boundaries. So, as strange as this might sound, a lot of men are actually uncomfortable in relationships where they're not being treated like a doormat. They're actually used to the role of the white knight, that when they meet a woman who actually treats them well, it's weird to them. To them, it feels like, something's a little off, the chemistry's not there. But the reality is they're simply not used to good treatment from women. And oftentimes, they're not used to good treatment from anyone, even their male friends. So they're used to sacrificing themselves for everyone else. But if you're different, if you are a guy who wants better relationships, and if you want to attract women who will treat you great and you yourself become a man who's able to accept women like that into your life, then you have to be willing to set higher standards for yourself. Having higher standards will naturally filter out the women who might elicit white knight tendencies that you have, or the women who introduce drama into your life and all other bullshit. And it's going to allow you, having those higher standards will allow you to build a solid, fulfilling relationship, which is usually what most guys want who reach out to me. But let's get to the core, first of all, of why being a white knight gets you nowhere. When you go out of your way, when you bend over backwards to save a woman, you are planting the seeds of resentment. You resent her because you feel like your efforts just are not being recognized or reciprocated. And she resents you because she feels like you're trying to change her. And it's a cycle that never ends well. This is usually why relationships like this fall to shit. They fall apart. Strong relationships do not start with you needing to fix her. Both you and her need to be in a good place before coming together. So if you're trying to come in and rescue or save the day, you're setting up that relationship for failure from the start. Remember this: women want to be led, but they don't want to be changed. When you're a man with a strong presence, with clear goals and passions, she will naturally want to follow. And this doesn't mean that you need to be loud or a big extrovert. It's simply about having a genuine lust for life and a mission that you are striving for. So, let's wrap it up with this. If you find yourself falling into white knight habits, stop. Focus on your purpose, your mission, and your passions. Be the man who leads with strength and confidence, not with sacrifice and servitude. Be the mental escape for her, the calm in her storms. When you live like this, you'll naturally become a man women are drawn to, not because you're trying to win them over, but because you are living a life that they want to be a part of. And that, my fellow scoundrels, is the kind of man you want to be. So guys, who out there has been a white knight at some point in their life? What woke you up to get you out of it, or are you still there? Share your story. I want to hear it. Share it down in the comments and let's talk about it. And if you want to dive deeper into mastering the skills of becoming a masculine leader, then check out my free guide. It's called The Gentleman's 12-Point Guide to Dropping Panties. And that's linked down in the description below. And if you would like to book a one-on-one coaching session with me, just click my coaching links below and see what options work best for you. All right, guys, that is it for this longer video today. A little bit longer, deeper dive, but I hope it was helpful for you. That is it for this one. We will see you in the next video.